friends, Romans, countrymen, Nigerians and Russians with illegitimate amounts of wealth. I'm doing my Wastecast today from a particularly awkward angle because I'm charging my phone up and the cables have to be like tied together with a cable tie. You can't even see it, I don't give a fuck. So my phone's like in the corner, which you might find slightly annoying, but you're only going to watch this for like 35 seconds before you look at something more interesting. And probably leave no comments except for like troll comments. But there's a cool book which I've never read. I'd like to read it if I survive long enough to read it. I mean, I probably will read it, and you know, it's very interesting and all that. Anyway, I've just got an AI prose lift this book. It's all like tax avoidance in the city of London. It's really interesting, but I haven't read it, so I'm not really qualified to make a statement. But like, I know what it's about, and I've seen them in documentaries. So I'll just read you this, and then you can fuck off. Right, so The Great Offshore Heist, a review of Treasure Islands. The book Treasure Islands, Tax Haven, and the Men Who Stole the World by Nicholas Shaxson. It's about economics, and it's like journalistic. I don't know what the fuck lead means. Lead. It's like Latin or something. I don't know. Might just show my ignorance here. The Invisible Empire. If you believe the global economy is governed by the law of supply and demand, or even by the laws of sovereign nations, Nicholas Shaxson's here to tell you that you are mistaken. In Treasure Island, Shaxson, a former Reuters correspondent and associate fellow at Chatham House, pulls back the curtain in a parallel universe. This is not the economy of the factory floor or the high street. It's the offshore economy. Shadowy archipelago where laws are optional and disclosure is criminalised and capital flows like water through a sieve. Shaxson's thesis is terrifyingly simple. Tax havens are not merely toxic anomalies on the fringe of the global economy, they actually are the global economy. The spider's web, the British connection, the love coming to Britain. Perhaps the most scandalous inference in the book is the dismantling of the British self-image. Shaxson argues that the British Empire didn't collapse in the mid-20th century. Actually, it mutated, transformed into a financial empire, creating what he terms a spider's web. It's a bit of a shit metaphor, I think, but anyway. The centre is the City of London, not the metropolis, but the ancient, semi-autonomous corporation of London, which is a feudal entity with its own laws, its own police force, and a remembrancer who sits in the House of Commons to ensure no legislation harms the banks. Fucked up, right? Radiating out from London are the Crown dependencies. Guernsey, we used to say if you took an E, so one-way ticket to Guernsey. That's an in-joke for my old friends from Exeter. You probably think I'm a twat now, but like, yeah, one-way ticket to Guernsey. It's got to be done. Isle of Man as well. And further out overseas territories, places like the Caymans, British Virgin Islands, and Bermuda, and fucking whatever. Shaxson explains the genius of the structure. London can funnel dirty money from the periphery into the city while claiming plausible deniability regarding the tax laws of its dependencies. So it's a system that's designed to separate the benefits of finance, like fees and liquidity, from the costs, like transparency and tax. Here are some stats from the book that will probably make you feel a bit surprised. Shaxson backs his narrative with numbers that are difficult to comprehend, painting a picture of theft on a planetary scale. 20 trillion black hole. At the time of publication, estimates suggested that wealthy individuals held roughly 11.5 trillion in offshore assets. More recent updates on this figure, including corporate holdings, could be upwards of 20 to 30 trillion. To put that into perspective, that's roughly equal to the GDP of the United States and Japan combined, sitting in legal limbo. The Great Drain of the South, so the most morally damning statistic, concerns the developing world. For every $1 of foreign aid flowing into developing nations, an estimated $10 flows out via illicit capital flight. Google that term if you don't know what it means. transfer pricing and debt repayments to offshore entities. The inference is quite stark. The West is not aiding the South. The South is subsidising the West. Corporate trade is a myth, he claims. 60% of world trade consists of transfers within the same multinational corporation. So transfer pricing is another thing you can Google. By manipulating the prices of these internal sales, for example, selling a patent to a subsidiary in Bermuda for $1 and then leasing it back to the UK branch for millions, companies strip profits from high tax nations, shift them to zero tax havens. Scandalous inferences. So it's not just about tax. While the tax is in the title, Shaxson argues the real product on offer is secrecy and escape. It's the separation of risk and responsibility. The offshore system allows financial elites to escape from the democratic social contract. They benefit from the infrastructure, legal systems and security of offshore nations like the UK and the US, but they refuse to pay for them. Shaxson implies there is a form of treason, a revolt of the rich against the societies that enriched them. The UK is the ultimate haven. While the UK runs the web, the US is a massive player. The US is the ultimate haven, not the UK. I got that the wrong way around. Shaxson points the finger at Delaware, Wyoming and Florida. He highlights that while the US aggressively chases its own citizens for tax evasion abroad, it happily acts as a secrecy jurisdiction for Latin American drug cartels, African dictators offering qualified intermediary status, and the effect that effectively binds foreign tax authorities. I love sniffing coke, so hopefully they'll keep getting away with it. Anyway, regulatory capture, right? The book infers that democracy has been hollowed out, so governments are no longer in charge. They're captured by offshore interface. When politicians claim they can't close loopholes because capital will flee there, repeating a narrative carefully crafted by the City of London and by Wall Street. Shaxson argues that the capital controls are not only possible, but they're like necessary for the survival of the democracy. In conclusion, Treasure Islands is written with the pace of a thriller, but the rigour of an academic dissertation. It's journalistically intonated to provoke outrage, but that outrage isn't earned through forensic accounting and historical deep dives. Its scandalous conclusion is that the financial crisis of 2008 wasn't an accident, but a direct result of the offshore mindset, the removal of constraints and the obfuscation of risk. I reckon it was to do with toxic derivatives, just like it said on fucking BBC News, but there we are. Shaxson leaves the reader with a chilling realisation. We're not citizens of sovereign nations, we're subjects of a global financial empire that operates beyond the reach of law, hiding in plain sight. And give it 5 stars for essential reading. So basically, like, you can go onto Companies House, right, which is this website, and if you've got 2 brain cells to keep each other company, you can, and 50 quid or whatever, you can start a company, right, like fucking Dildos Incorporated 1 2 3, and you can make Barack Obama your CEO, and you can say like 1 2 3 fucking Lube Street as your fucking a trading premises, and they don't do any background checks, and you can then use that company registrations number for all sorts of shit. And that's why everyone who wants to sequester their dirty money or the profits of immoral earnings or fucking whatever all come to London, because the City of London's like the best place ever for doing this shit. But it brings loads of money into the economy, and they spend it in London on houses in Knightsbridge and employ people and start businesses. And, things like, money laundering is a massive fucking industry. I used to sell drugs when I was a wee nipper when I was a teenager, and fucking, used to put, quite frequently thousands of pounds into my Lloyd's bank account. Cashier would be like, what are you doing? You're 15. Do you know what I mean? What are you doing with all this money? And I'd be like, I'm going to go and buy a new mountain bike. She'd be like, oh yeah. A lot of people are there's an expression, fucking clown shoes. If you're from Totnes, it sort of comes from, there's a drum and bass genre called clown step. If you listen to a tune by Andy C called Body Rock, that's what clown step is. And the term clown shoes basically means like severe intellectual ineptitude, like doing something which is just really like a detraction from intelligence. But a lot of people with dodgy money, they do that. Like you could train a fucking like a fucking Yorkshire Terrier to get a brick of coke, snap it in four, and put it in 4 different fucking boxes. Like on a housing estate, you can make 15 grand a week doing that. Like if you've got a smartphone and a fucking 1,000 friends on Facebook and Telegram and WhatsApp, it doesn't mean that you're fooling his money as soon parted. But see a lot of people who've got like a second-hand Lamborghini Diablo for 28 grand and a fucking a fucking gold AK-47 they bought for 12 grand off the dark web, and they sort of think they're somebody because they've got 200 grand. And it's like, I'm sort of detracting into the world of drugs. I'm supposed to talk about tax and tax havens, but what I'm talking about is illegitimate wealth and the way that you've got to wash your money. Like people, quite a common one is like those trailers that you see behind the park on the motorway. They sell like fucking burgers and fucking egg and bacon baps and shit like that. The markup on that is huge. You're selling an egg in a sandwich for £2.50 or £5 or whatever, and it costs you like 25p or something. You just get all your eggs and your baps and chuck them in the fucking bin, write your accountant to say you've sold fucking 50,000 egg baps this month, and like as long as the HMRC don't go through it with like a fucking magnifying glass, you get away with it. And that's how you look. You pay yourself a wage from that business if you've got no concept of money laundering or what that means. Anyway, it's a book I haven't read, I know fuck all about, and a shit YouTube video from inside this fucking horrible psychiatric unit. I don't know what if I should say or do or like express that would be nice. To round off with, do a Rise sign off. Saw that in a Charlie Brooker documentary, or not documentary, one of his brilliant comedy pieces. So we're going to do a Rise sign off. So it's Brodie McLeod. Have a great day, everybody. Enjoy yourselves and be good. And if you can't be good, be careful. And I'll do a Rise sign off now. Right, just focus at the sky.